yesterday we sort of left off with a couple bugs that I was trying to figure out that I hadn't encountered before. Trying to show everything on stream for how I'm going through the process. So I haven't even really done much research on how to figure those out. Yeah, so I think we'll dive into that a little and see how I'm figuring stuff out, which is usually through the Flutter Discord channel, which is probably the best place that I've found to get help and answers on questions. Or you have Stack Overflow and GitHub, which obviously are two well-known sources to get a lot of questions. Just general Google, really. Come on, 1 second. I'm gonna go refill my water quick, and then we'll get started. Looks like I was outsmarted by a mouse this morning, or I guess the last couple mornings. Have some mouse traps set up, and they're stealing all the cheese. Okay. So let's kill the app and restart it. And then, yeah, so we're having some trouble on startup where this future isn't reevaluating. And that's a problem. So we're gonna have to do some Googling there while it starts. So let's see. Yeah, and we're getting stuck here. So this should even be displaying a circular notification indicator, and it doesn't even show that. So that is reason for concern to me. I mean, it won't load even all the assets and stuff. So let's see if we can find out some information on why it won't load any of that. Yeah, because that app bar is outside of the FutureBuilder, so it shouldn't be dependent on the future at all. So we're just getting it where the app isn't loading all of its assets, and it's kind of like freezing up. And nothing works, sort of. And then if we hot reload, it works just fine. So let's see if we can do some Googling on that. So I guess it's not actually the FutureBuilder not updating, because it seems like it's outside of the FutureBuilder where the problem is coming from. So Flutter app freezes on start until hot reload. And maybe we'll have to go to Discord here. So let me just jump into the Flutter. And then we'll go to, let's go to the beginner. You want to run into an issue with running an app in an Android emulator where the app freezes when it started. It doesn't show the asset images. And then if I do a hot restart right after starting, we'll see if we can get any help there. And then we'll just, yeah. So it doesn't crash on startup, but it freezes basically. I wonder if we get that on hot restarts too. No, so a hot restart works fine. So it's just that initial load of the app, and I'm wondering if it's something to do with having to call this start database. I mean, it's consistent. I don't know of a way that we don't run this with that database in a FutureBuilder. Let me think for a second here. What's a better way to ask this to Google. I think that's what a lot of these end up coming down to for finding solutions is how do you best ask Google? So let's see. It's not crashing, it's just frozen. It looks like we are getting a little bit of help right now on the Discord from one of the true Flutter geniuses on here, Miyoyo. Super helpful guy. Oh, no, that's for a different question. So it's not crashing, it's freezing, guys. There we go. It's not during hot reload that it freezes. It's until. I guess some of them are saying that maybe just doing a Flutter clean might help, so we'll try that. Just to clean out that build folder. Doesn't look like that worked either. So what is going on? It runs that. We're fine. Let's do a couple more prints here. So show loading indicator. Otherwise, print. show main page. I guess the other thing I could do is just try and plug my phone in and see if this is happening only on the emulator. Maybe it's just a problem with Android emulation and it'll work fine if I use a real device. That definitely does happen sometimes. So show loading indicator, but it doesn't actually run the loading indicator. I don't get this. But it is allowing me to save the button. Show loading indicator. Listeners notified down here. And then it's going to return. So it's properly making it all the way to the return. On the future. So started. So, I mean, I expected to run it through that once and show the loading indicator while the DB starts up. I had that notify listeners in there yesterday and it wasn't working, but we'll see how it does today. Doesn't do anything. This is no bueno. So what can I try next here? I mean, we've already liberally used the print statements, we know. So I can undo this notify listeners. So if the DB is open, it's never actually getting back to this part. Though it doesn't seem. Oh, a hot reload and then it'll work. But then if we kill it, we'll probably end up with the same thing. These are the issues that are really frustrating, or when there's like no good explanation, not even a good question to ask. We have to get rid of this. And we're working fine here. I do need to center that. It's centering it. It's centering it on what's left of that leading button. We would probably have to pull padding off. I would need to find a way to do that dynamically. So I'll come back to that. I think first things first, we need to figure out how to, not first things first. First things first, we got to figure out why it's freezing. Let's see. A phone battery. I don't. Maybe if we plug it in, be able to stay on. I've got an old Pixel phone here that I use for testing. So we'll let that start up. In the meantime, we'll work on these prompts. So this one looks like an issue that we're not going to be able to solve right now. I'm going to have to drop on Discord. I'll just drop again on there. Maybe I'll add an edit. That starts, I have a FutureBuilder, which is supposed to open a SQLite database. Should show a circular loading indicator in the meantime. Correctly. Then we'll look at Flutter hint text wrapping. Looks like there's numerous issues on there, and they've so let's see what we got for a couple of these. Automatically, how can I wrap the hint text? I can't just add line breaks where I want it to break in these prompts because I don't know. So this is just like maybe I need to file a bug with Flutter, even though there's multiple here. How do we have a closed bug here? One 11197. Not fixed. Not fixed. Apparently they think this thing is fixed. I don't want a max lines, guys. If I'm able to set it sort of defeats the purpose in that you can set basically a scrolling page like a word editor if you set max lines to a text field to null so that you're not bound by having like, oh, now there's a box that only goes halfway down the page even though I want it to take the full page when I don't know the size of the phone. And if you set that to null, it's automatically going to break for the hint text. That seems to be a bug. Yeah, I gotta figure out this stuff. Wrapping the text field. because I have my text input here. Hint max lines. What if I set my hint max lines to 5? That seems to work, I guess. So that's simple. My prompts will probably never be more than 2 or 3 lines, but just to be safe, we'll give hint text 5. We'll max at 10 lines. Let's see a long one that goes all the way over. So yeah, here, that when seems to go a little too far over to the right. We already have some edge insets here, so maybe we'll just pop it off by 5 or 10 on the right. Let's see. Right, let's try 5 to start. Yeah, that seems to be pretty good, forcing it to have that little space there. Cool, cool. Yeah, so I guess we still need to worry about why it's freezing on startup. Maybe I'll try to look up to see if we can just center the app bar too quick, even with the button. So the center the app bar title regardless of the leading button. Center app bar title regardless of leading icon. Centering the title is the default on iOS. On Android, the app bar's title defaults to left align, but you can override it by passing center title true as an argument to the app bar constructor. Okay, so let's try that rather than putting it in the center widget. And maybe that'll solve that problem. So we need to take this container, axu, get rid of the center, we'll just replace that. And then center title true. So we're a little bit off to the right here, and then if we save, we're back. And now, obviously it's gonna freeze it at first, but we'll get the hot restart so that we can make sure it's still centered when that widget is there. And there it is, frozen. So we'll get our hot restart, and it looks like we're centered. And then let's go to a new day to bring that back button up. So basically, all this back button is doing is it is calling a navigator.pop. So you know how I was talking about sort of the display stack for the navigator in Flutter, where you're adding new routes or new pages that you go to on top of the previous ones and keep stacking them up so that you can traverse backwards. That's what this pop allows you to do with this button. So if we hit that, we're back on that page. Yeah. So I guess since we have these sort of working now, we're still trying to figure out the bug with the loading. Hopefully I can get some help on Discord from there, or I might have to post my own Stack Overflow. Yeah, I think what we have to do now, or what the next thing I'm going to do, is implementing the favoriting. I don't know if I'll fully get that implemented today. I'll probably have to hop off in like 15 minutes. But until then, we can probably at least get the building of the table in, because we're going to have to create a new table. So I guess the first thing I want to do is first thing I got to do is see if JSON supports tuples. I don't think they do. Value out. You can parse the keys themselves as JSON objects. Yeah, I guess I could just do them as a tuple, like a list within a list. Or I can just do proper JSON. That's probably the way to do it. So we're going to implement that because we're going to want our prompt to still have their own IDs here. List of dictionaries. We'll do one based index. Do this part first because then we can copy and paste that first part there. Yeah, I still need to go through and write a lot more prompts for this. Hopefully I end up getting to like 100 some. I know we have some of those affirmations I want to write too, and grab some of those. That'll be coming pretty soon. Hopefully we can get to the affirmation page. I mean, after we get these prompts saving, that's probably what we'll work on next. We just have to, before we're able to do that, it's a little tedious, but part of the job, I guess. Part of the hobby, I guess. It's not really a job right now. Oh, man. Yeah. So if we'll save that, we're going to have to update basically where we're getting our prompts so that we're collecting them properly from there. Let's rerun pub get. And then I guess we'll rebuild this just so we can see where the error is with how we're handling the prompts. But we do know that number of prompts, so we're going to get that list. Random indexed. So our prompt so no error yet because of the freeze, but then boom. All right, fine. Error. Because that's not a string, that map. So we have to do var prompt object equals that should solve that problem. Cool. So that's working. So I guess on that favorite, we can set up a function. So we're going to need, do we have to await when we save? Get entries, insert entry. Oh wait, start database. I guess we will, because we're going to have to check. We're going to have to do a couple things first. We're going to have to query to see if the table exists. Favorite prompt. Actually, we want that to be a prompt. Because then when we favorite the prompt, we can just grab the data and we don't have to pass it in because it's what's stored here in the provider. Prompt object, and then that's going to cause some problems up here where we're displaying the prompt. Map.prompt is not equal to null. So if the map.prompt is not equal to null, then we want math.prompt, and then here we're going to just print the ID, just so we can double check that we'll be saving the right prompt ID. String is not a subtype int of index. I think we'll have to restart it because we had that seated as a string. Yeah, starting to get close to Christmas season, so rocking the drunk Santa PJs. And yet again, the freeze on start, we'll do that. And that seems to be working all right. And then if we favorite, oh wait, we got to make that call, our function. So where's our favorite button? Prompt ID 3. Prompt ID 14. You're proud of 14. Cool. So that's working. So the next steps I think that I'll have to do here to finish the prompt favoriting will be to first, when we click that button, we're going to need to check to see if the prompts database has been created. Because now that I think that I have the onCreate function already ran, it won't be running that again when it opens. So I'll probably have to do that secondhand. Or I suppose I can just uninstall it for my debug portion of the app and start from scratch. So basically what I'm going to have to do is set up, basically we're going to run a SQL query to check whether the table exists. If the table doesn't exist, we'll create the table. I don't think we really need a whole lot of information in there for the prompt. I think it'll just be, we'll have an ID value if that's an integer. We'll have a text value that is the actual prompt text, and then probably just a Boolean value, true, false, for favorited. That way we don't have to like delete prompts from the database every time someone unfavorites something or whatnot. We can just update that Boolean column. And then once we have the data portion implemented on the front end, we'll just have to be looking to mark that favorited prompt thing. We're going to want to fill that in when they are favorited. Yeah, and then I think that covers that portion of it. And then after that, we can start working on maybe implementing some things so that when we pull your prompts, we grab them 20% of the time from the ones you have favorited or something like that. And I think that's where we'll get next, probably, is hopefully finishing that whole prompt portion. I'm going to keep digging into why this thing won't load properly when we first start it, and we have to do that hot restart. Yeah, I wonder if this phone is charged up enough for us to get a shot at it on an actual device. Yeah, otherwise, once we can figure out this prompt portion, I think we're mostly done with this main page. Initially, I'm still going to come up and probably find some better like free fonts that I can use just to pretty it up a little bit with the text so it's not so, basic sans serif, 12-point write your paper in Arial type thing. Please your high school English teacher. But then, yeah, once we finish that, we can move on. We'll go to the affirmation page next, and then probably the home page, and then we'll work on the settings. And in the settings is when we'll start trying to look at implementing things like push notifications for reminders and being able to schedule when those notifications come. As far as various other settings, I guess, also in the settings, we'll probably look at implementing Google Drive backup. So I don't want to store any of your data for this, especially this is kind of personal data and personal information, which is why we're using SQLite. So we're storing it all on your device. But let's say you want to keep all your information and all your journal entries and whatnot, and you're going to a new phone or something. We should be able to do a relatively simple, just load it up to your link to your Google Drive and load it to your Google Drive as each of the data tables as CSV, and then we'll have to also implement how to load that data back into the phone. So like say you get the new phone and you want to start setting up your account, and you can go, load data from Google Drive or from file, and go from there. So I guess that's where we're going next. Prompts for sure next. Let's finish that up with saving to the DB and then the affirmations. And then right now we'll see if this works on an actual pixel, or if we get the same loading issue. And if we get the same loading issue, we have some work to dive in there and figure out what's going on. It's running. Building. Yeah, a little bit shorter stream this morning. I've got some other things to take care of in about 20 minutes. Might try to eat a little food quick before then, but wanted to hop on and at least see if we can figure out some of these bugs. I guess we were 1 for 2, 50%. Not good or bad, I guess, right down the middle. But we got the hint text one figured out, and got to at least start implementing some of this prompt stuff. And we're loading up. Show loading indicator. So on the actual device, it seemed to have worked just fine. Oop. I won't have any data on this phone because it's all on local device, so it's all on that other emulator. I'm also a big fan of using Firebase for data storage, just not in this use case. But yeah, so it seemed like that worked fine on phone. We'll have to dive in and see if that's just a emulator issue, and if it is, not too big of a deal. But yeah, it did look like it worked just fine here. Let's see if we can spotlight that where it loaded it. It's hard to see the text, and this isn't the best view. That's why I've been using an emulator. But at least we somewhat know that the issue is mostly coming from using an emulator for the debugging. And maybe if we were even building with a release version to the emulator, it would work. Sometimes there's a little bit of a difference between the debug and the release versions with what they'll allow. But yeah, I guess that's my progress for today so far, unless I hop back on later tonight, which is a possibility depending on how late I end up working. And I also got to make a little progress on my van build. So yeah, we'll see when we hop back on. If not this afternoon or tonight, probably tomorrow. Yeah, at least hop on a little bit every morning. Take care of some of it, but a little bug fixing this morning, and hopefully we can keep working on adding features and adding stuff now that I won't go 2 for 2 on the bugs being fixed, because one of them we didn't really fix. It just seems like it's a bug that's only affecting the emulator. So we'll just call it not a bug and say we're 1 for 1, 100%. How about that? Yeah. Peace out. Yeah.